And Dr. Jordan, if you wanted to take the lead on this, and maybe students, I also coordinate the school counseling program. So if you could chat if anybody's interested in the school. And when she finishes, maybe I'll touch on that briefly too. Does that sound like a plan, Dr. Jordan? Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Dr. Gre. And yeah, we've got our two tracks. We've got clinical mental health and school counseling. Clinical mental health is on all three campuses. School counseling is in Asheville and in Hickory. And as Dr. Gre said, he really heads up the school counseling program. We have a larger track for clinical. So as I'm talking, that'll generally be where I'm framing my answers or what I'm talking about, but a lot of it overlaps between the two programs or tracks. There's really just, I think even saying handful feels too many. Like there's just about a handful of classes that are different between the two tracks. So much of what I say applies to both, but Dr. Gre can speak to school counseling more specifically. As Nichole said, I'm located on the Asheville campus. Dr. Gre is located on the Hickory campus. Dr. Janelle Robinson isn't with us today, but she's the program coordinator on the Columbia campus, and we're happy to answer questions on her behalf as we can about that portion of our program. Our program is the same curriculum across all three campuses, aside from that school counseling track only being on the two. And aside from faculty being situated where we are. COVID and virtual learning have offered some surprising opportunities, I would say, for some cross-campus. The word contamination comes up, but that's not positive. It's been positive. Some cross-campus collaboration and where students have had access to classes on different campuses in a new way. Though because of our accrediting body, that's probably not going to continue in the same way, that we are primarily a face-to-face program. But
well, thanks for talking to me.
that we do have some online options. Our classes are offered in a few different formats. I can go on. So if you all have questions, please pause me and ask, or ask in the chat box. Our classes tend to be Monday through Friday. Monday through Thursday. We don't usually have classes on Fridays, and they tend to be in the evenings, anywhere between 4 and 9 p.m., I would say usually. We have our most traditional format for classes, which are 3-hour classes that meet once a week, face-to-face. Then we have classes that we call hybrid, that meet once every other week, face-to-face for 3 hours, and on the off weeks have an online like a discussion board and sometimes an online lecture or some materials to engage with in a module for the off week. Then we also have some classes that are fully online, asynchronous. That has been consistent even pre-COVID, but with COVID, we've also been offering a handful of classes fully virtual, synchronous, where they meet. But just kind of like this on Zoom. As we hopefully see improvements with numbers around COVID, we'll continue moving more and more back face-to-face. That's the goal, and that's what we've been doing, especially this fall, of moving in that direction. So when we've got prospective students asking if this is a program that you can do virtually or online, unfortunately, it's not. Our accrediting body is pretty strict about that. Though we do try to make it as accessible as possible for our working adult students by having those classes in the evenings and in the different formats that we have found to be really successful and accessible for our students. I don't know, Nichole, you usually give me a little guidance of which direction.
Yeah,
I think also it going into, of course, like the licensure piece
Yeah.
too, would be good for them to know.
Yep.
And then maybe the different courses that they'll take in our program.
Sure.
And then also kind of career fields, and what that might look like.
Oof. All right, I'll start with the one that feels the easiest of those, which is our curriculum is really determined by our accrediting body, by CACREP. We are CACREP accredited, and we're really proud of that and take it very seriously. So both tracks are 61 credit hours, and that includes a total of 20 classes, 18 of which are pretty set of which classes CACREP says you need. Then there are 2 required electives, especially for our clinical track. For school counseling, I think there's 1 required elective that's determined for you and the other that you get to pick. So yeah, things like counseling theories is one that you'd take very early in the program, a basic techniques class, that then moves you through our skills sequence of basic techniques, advanced techniques, and then moving into field placement classes of a semester of practicum and 2 semesters of internships. And then group counseling, crisis counseling, trying to think of diversity issues in counseling, ethics. Yeah, a whole career counseling, a whole range of those 18 required CACREP classes. Let's see, electives, we offer a wide range of those depending, we try to base them on student request as much as we can, while also using the faculty that we've got and what we know that students might need, specifically around licensure, which Nichole alluded to. So some examples of electives that we offer really regularly are things like a trauma counseling elective, sexuality counseling, spirituality counseling, expressive arts in counseling is a pretty big one. I know there's a play therapy elective often. There's a cool study abroad elective that goes to Italy. Yeah.
Health and wellness.
Oh yeah.
We've done grief classes before. Gosh. So there, and we're very open. We want to hear your feedback about what areas of interest you have. And of course, we've got the trauma classes now. Did you already speak to that, Myra? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, we've also had some theory specific electives that are really cool, like a narrative therapy elective this past summer in Asheville. We've had a third wave CBT class that we've offered a couple of times. So it depends, but it's kind of a cool thing to wait and see what's up for grabs in the semesters that you would be eligible for electives, which typically happen toward the end of the program for our students. Our program meets the educational requirements for licensure in North Carolina and across state lines, actually, because of CACREP. And so when you graduate, you have your degree, and you are eligible to apply for licensure as in North Carolina as an LCMHCA, in South Carolina as an LPCA. So you're eligible to apply to take the licensure exam. Most students do that while they're still in the program. And then at graduation or after graduation to apply for that associate licensure, and then accrue your hours towards full licensure, which in North Carolina is a 3,000 hour requirement in supervised clinical hours. School counseling is a little bit different with the certification process, and Dr. Gre can talk a little bit more about that. But the same applies, that both tracks offer the educational requirements that you need for licensure. Internships, people often ask about that. That we have 3 semesters of field placements. one of practicum, which is like a mini internship where students spend 8 to 12 hours per week at a site doing what counselors do, but with some additional, I don't want to say hand holding because it's not quite that, but some additional supervision and support from a site supervisor and a faculty supervisor, just getting a feel for what the work we do is, and also working with a small caseload of clients. That then, as you move into internship, in those 2 semesters, students spend closer to 20 to 25 hours per week at their internship site with more of a full caseload of clients and more independence, but still with supervision on site and on campus to support that development and work. Let's see, typical time frame. Yeah, I think 2 to 3 years is reasonable. More specifically, if you're going what we would call full-time, that means 3 classes in fall and spring and 2 classes in the summers, that you can be done in 8 semesters, again, including summers. That works out to about 2.5 years. For students who go what we call part-time, but federal financial aid says is still full-time, which is 2 classes per semester, that takes a total of 10 semesters, which is closer to 3.5 years. So I'd say 2.5 to 3.5 years is typical for our program. And every now and then we have students who want to slow it or need to slow it down even more. And that's totally possible as well. That as long as you don't have that financial federal loan requirement of needing to be in 2 classes at a time, you could take 1 at a time and just sort of mosey your way through. We also, students can kind of, I don't want to say go back and forth, but if there's a semester where you know that your workload in work or in family or in other areas of life is more intensive and you need to drop down to just 2, but then the following semester you've got some flexibility in your schedule and you want to add a 3rd, that is the type of advising and juggling that we're pretty used to working through with our students, to help meet your needs around being real adult humans with other things going on in life. Yeah, dual licensure. Yeah. So we do offer I think it's a pretty unique and sweet deal in our program, which we call the add-on. It's not a dual degree program, so we have to be really clear about that part. But basically what it is you have your primary track of, let's say your primary track is clinical mental health counseling. So you'd complete all of the necessary coursework for that. But then those 2 electives that I talked about could be filled with a couple of the school counseling required courses. And if you took a couple more, including a practica, an internship in school counseling, you would wind up with on your transcript having met the educational requirements for both licensures, so that then you could apply for licensure as both an LCMHCA and a school counselor after graduation. And it goes the other way too. If you declare school counseling as your primary, but tack on the clinical mental health specific courses, it turns the 61 credit hour program into 67 or 68 credit hours, depending on which is your primary track. So it's, again, bang for your buck. It's kind of a sweet deal. Though I will say, I will say one of the ways that students determine if it's the right choice for them is taking the intro to school counseling and the intro to clinical mental health counseling classes that we offer very early in the program, which really can help clarify if you want both tracks. And if you wind up deciding you don't, the intro class in the track that isn't yours would count as an elective and still support your development and understanding of the field, which is cool. I will let Nichole talk about GRE and GPA. Let's see. There is the internship requirement that I talked about. More licensure. Oh, would I be able to talk about licensure in other states? Not specifically, because there are a lot of them and every state is different, but what we would do is work with you in your academic advising, where you and your advisor could have some really in-depth conversations about the state or states that you're thinking you might want to be licensed in. Unfortunately, we don't have reciprocity right now across state lines, though there's a lot of movement happening in advocacy efforts for our field to make licensure more transferable across state lines. But what we do encourage students to do is, while you're in the program, to be looking at the licensure board requirements in those states of interest to you, to make sure that you're taking any additional coursework that they might require. For example, this isn't common, but I know Florida requires a sexuality counseling class in order for folks to be licensed in that state. And so that's one that we consistently offer as an elective, so that any of our students who want to get licensed in Florida just know that they have to take that while they're here. That's really the only state specific class requirement that I've heard of, but otherwise it's usually after graduation. Like I said, the academic requirements here would meet the needs across state lines, and then it's just a difference of how many hours you have to get after graduating with that LCMHCA license, the associate's level license, before you can apply for full licensure. Those requirements tend to vary slightly from state to state. Some require some other wonky little things that we would help you navigate as much as we can throughout the program. I will also say with COVID and telehealth, again, that push for reciprocity across states has gone up. There's a compact where certain states are signing off with other states saying that they will accept licensure from those states within theirs. I think Maryland and Georgia had signed on to one. I haven't heard as much recently, but that was happening, which is exciting. Neal, did you want to say something?
I think the only thing to say, I was going to say with that, is I have been licensed in 4 different states, so it's doable. And I think us being a K-CREB program, we're setting that foundation that you would think we would be the most acceptable program. I don't mean us as Lenoir-Rhyne University, but as an accredited program. So I think what Dr. Jordan said, have conversations with us. You're going to join the American Counseling Association in the program, and they have a document that reviews all state licensure board requirements. So start looking at that. If you think you might move, keep syllabi. We did have a student from Louisiana that was moving to South Carolina. I apologize, this was not our student, but somebody that we connect sometimes with students that aren't ours, and had some conversation talking through. They split up the practicum internship a little differently. So I'm just telling you, all these states have these little idiosyncrasies, nuances. So start looking at it. But I think we enjoy this piece. We want to support you if you plan on not living in South Carolina or North Carolina. That said, we love those states, but if you want to go somewhere else, we want to support you in your endeavors. So.
Yeah, and I see the question in the chat that absolutely you can be licensed in multiple states. And as far as having clients in multiple states, you can only see clients who are in the states where you're licensed, even through telehealth. And so that's why I think some folks are like Neal said, he's been licensed in 4 states. I know Dr. Vasilis is licensed in North Carolina and South Carolina. So depending on where you want to work and which clients you want to see, there's the possibility of being licensed in multiple places, though it does get expensive and complicated. I would say it's doable. Let's see. So supervision, I'm not sure which part of I'm going to answer it in two parts. First part is during practicum and internship, our students receive supervision at their sites from a site supervisor who's approved by the university and meets certain KCREP standards. And some of our students do their practicum and internship at a site where they work, where they're also employed. There are some that needs to be approved and talked through with your advisor and the clinical coordinator at your campus, but that is something that can be done depending on the site. After graduation, when you're licensed with the associate's license, yeah, I think often that it can be a selling point of working for an agency after graduation is that many community agencies provide on-site licensure supervision as part of the job instead of you having to pay for it, or instead of you getting to pay for it from private supervision. So that, yeah, I hope I answered that question, Selena. And again, yeah, there are different requirements for site supervisors as far as who qualifies to be a site supervisor based on KCREP requirements. And then there are requirements to be a licensure supervisor based on the licensure board requirements. It's a little bit complicated, but you don't have to worry about it. We've got it covered. We can help with that. As far as what people do with a degree in clinical mental health counseling, I would say it's a pretty broad range, though the vast majority of our students go on to get licensed as an LCMHC or an LPC, depending on the state. I don't know if most is fair to say. I don't have numbers on this, but I do know that many of our students come in with the goal of private practice after graduation, which is definitely something that can be done and that happens. I've actually been pretty surprised with how many of our alums are able to get a private practice going relatively quickly after graduating. That wasn't my experience in other parts of the country and from other programs. But also agency work in, we've got folks working at the VA, we've got folks working as school-based therapists in addition to school counselors or as a side thing of, those are two different things. We've got, I mean, any mental health agency in Asheville, pretty much we've got folks. Trying to think of a lot of residential treatment facilities. The mountains are a hot spot for those. If you look at our partners, LR partners list, a bunch of those folks, agencies on that list are places where our students wind up working. Working in hospitals, trying to think, in hospice work, in, yeah, wide range. I'll let Neal answer that school counseling question.
Yeah, and before I say that, I think the uniqueness of counseling, so as y'all are looking, some of you may be looking at, and they're all fine fields, counseling, social work, psychology. Some of you may be looking at licensed marriage and family therapy, but I would say our uniqueness versus psychology and social work is you're really trained in this program to do therapy. That's the focus of counseling. That's the main thing we do is therapy. So if that's where you really feel like what you want to do, your preparation is going to be best met in a KCREP accredited master's degree program. Now, we hope that would be Lenoir-Rhyne's KCREP accredited master's degree program, but our field, that's what we focus on is therapy. So, And then for school counseling, I would just say, Nichole, did we get some feedback or about anybody interested in doing school counseling?
Yeah, the chat does, as far as state licensure, applying for school counseling too.
Okay, so you guys, we do not offer the program in South Carolina. If there's any South Carolina people here, Nichole can give you my information. I'd love to talk to you about school counseling licensure and the possibilities of that to our program. But in North Carolina, you are eligible for provisional school counseling license at 24 hours. That does not mean you could drop out of the degree program. You have to finish the degree to have full counseling licensure. And what licensure means on the school track is passing the Praxis 2 exam. You do not have the postmaster's degree supervision requirement you have in mental health counseling. So, and then again, reciprocity from state to state, there are options and availabilities. I have, and just to let you know a little bit about school counselor, it's a different school counseling position now than when you were required to be a teacher to be a school counselor. Now, a few states still hold on to that if you were looking at moving, and I can talk to you about that. But those are the requirements for school counseling licensure to become a professional school counselor in North Carolina. But I'm gonna tell you something, there are a lot of school counseling jobs out there. So as you come in the program, if you're interested in doing that, the degree in one area and license in the other, even if your long-term plans are to be a mental health counselor, a few years as a school counselor can be very beneficial to future private practitioners. Sorry. So that's all I have.
Yeah. I think we're pretty lucky in that most of our folks who teach within the school counseling track have both licensure as LCMHCs or LPCs and school counselors, which is a really cool thing to have for advising and mentorship. Licensure, how long it takes in North Carolina, it's 3,000 supervised hours after graduation, which if you're working full-time with a full caseload, I think can be done in 2 to 3 years. But if you're not working full-time, it can take a lot longer. Like I've calculated for me, to get full licensure is going to take 15 years because of teaching full-time, and such is life. But most people do it much more quickly than that. Class size, yeah, great question. Oh, that's a great question, Leanne. Our classes are generally capped at 20. Every now and then we in Asheville, at least probably true in Hickory too, we'll have a larger class than that. But in Asheville, our biggest room only seats like 30. So it very quickly becomes 2 sections of a class where you're in discussion with your 20-ish classmates and the faculty member for your class. As you move through, classes tend to get smaller, and depending on the type of class, like I think our techniques classes and group counseling classes are capped at 15. So those are smaller, and then practicum groups are capped at 6 or 7. So you, even with what we'd call big classes of maybe 20 to 30, there are, even with those mixed in, you will also have classes that are significantly smaller at some point in the program. I would say, depending on the class, I've heard Dr. Finfausen, our clinical coordinator in Asheville, she often describes our curriculum as being like a 3-legged stool, where we've got classes that are very content heavy, like our theories class, where there's just a lot to cover. Then classes that are very skills based, like that skills track that I described of techniques, advanced techniques, and the field placement classes where you're doing more role plays and activity-based things in addition to content learning. You're trying it out. And then we've got our self-reflective classes, like the diversity class, like, although I would say most of our classes have an element of all three, but where some are heavier on content than on skills, and others are heavier on skills than on self-reflection. The diagnosis class, for example, is not super heavy on self-reflection, but a lot of content. So yes, so with self-reflective classes, there's journal reflections as part of the assignments, there's class discussions, there's parent shares, there's small groups. And with our content heavy classes, there's more lecture. I don't know what other faculty have done, but for me, for my more content heavy classes with the pandemic and virtual classes, a lot of my lectures have now been recorded. And so for most of my classes, students are given a pre-recorded lecture before they come to class. And then our face-to-face time is interactive, activity-based, discussion-based, taking advantage of human connection as much as is possible after missing it a little bit in Zoom land. So, but even in Zoom land, we did a lot of that. So yeah, so I would say a mixture, but that gives a little bit more specifics to how those are mixed. I'll let Dr. Gre answer that recommendation question, though I would recommend it if you want to be a school counselor and a clinical mental health counselor. We certainly have folks who come in and say, oh, I just want to be as, oh my gosh, what's the word I'm thinking? I want to be as open as possible to all of the jobs. And so I'll do both tracks. And then they take the intro to clinical class and the intro to school and say, actually, even though it would only add a semester or two to my overall program, I know I really want to do X. So I'm just going to stick to that track. That does happen. Whereas others stay passionate about both tracks, and then it is worth it if it fits for you. Yeah, our classes. So if you're in two classes, this question, they tend to be Monday through classes tend to be Monday through Thursday. Like that's only when they're offered. But most classes aren't offered more often than once a week per class, if that makes sense. So if you're in two classes, the most you would be coming to campus is twice a week. And more likely, like if you're starting this spring with two classes, at least on the Asheville campus, I can tell you it would be theories on Monday nights with me and ethics probably moving back to Tuesday nights every other Tuesday. So you'd be here every Monday and every other Tuesday. If you're in two classes, and if you add a third, it would most likely be a fully asynchronous online class. So you're still only coming to campus 1 or 2 nights a week. Yeah, work outside of class, lots of reading, papers, yes, some research-based papers, some reflection-based papers. We recommend in advising that that you count on scheduling for every 3 hours that you spend in class, anywhere from 6 to 9 hours per week for studying, for reading, for writing papers. And that's how 3 classes can very quickly become close to 40 hours a week of work. But that depends on the student, that depends on the class, that depends on the week. I would say it's absolutely closer to 9 hours per class per week around now, like leading into midterm and around the end of the semester, but there are periods where it can be a little bit lighter.
Can I say something too, Dr. Jordan, about the curriculum?
Please.
I mean, I think the exciting thing about a master's and I love my bachelor's degree experience, but all the so we have 61 hours. What does that come out to? About 20
classes.
20 some class. Everything is moving towards your career and what you're going to do. I loved undergrad, but we had all those electives. I mean, and I don't use those a lot. I think those made me a better person, but everything we're doing, this is really a master's degree is your degree because it's really preparing you. So I appreciate what Dr. Jordan said. I think we do want you to immerse yourself in this. I mean, I give my students the example when I go see my medical doctor for my physical every year. I hope she or he put the time into those classes. So that's just my thought about
I love that, Dr. Gray. Me too. Yeah, and I hope they're doing continuing ed too.
Yes.
Golly.
Because we're
yeah.
going to want you to do that. We want lifelong learners in this program. People that are excited about learning. So.
And that's what you'll find from your faculty. That's what you'll find from fellow students in the program, is that we're a collection of lifelong learners. Not only do we hope that you'll continue with continuing ed after the program, but it's a requirement for continued licensure. So yeah, that's one thing that I often mention, is that we're a generalist program, and we believe in that. We believe in giving our students the widest exposure to what can be done in the field of mental health and school counseling. And we know that students often come in with niche or niche, depending on how French you are, interests. And we also want to encourage those, so that if you know, for example, coming into the program that you really want to work with eating disorders treatment, there's a way that you can cater and sort of focus all of your key projects in every class throughout the program to your interest, so that when you graduate, you feel really equipped in that one specific area. The other option is to just embrace the generalist and just kind of do your papers and projects on the things that are of interest to you within each class. And they can cover a wide range. And then when you graduate, to really kind of focus in on those continuing ed requirements in particular areas of focus. Students go both of those directions and anywhere in between. As far as acceptance, I'll let Nichole and Jan answer that. I will say, like, at any given time, I'd say right now we have about 120 students total at the Asheville campus. Is probably pretty similar in Hickory, and our Columbia campus is much smaller but growing. And even with these sort of larger student bodies than what we've had before, I've been really pleased with the feelings of community and connection that continue to develop within our students, even during a pandemic when we were fully virtual. Those students are more connected now than a lot of students who've been face-to-face for the whole thing. It's been really neat to witness. So we really do encourage students to connect with each other, to develop a sense of community in their classes, even though we're not a cohort-based model, meaning you can go at your own pace and you're not necessarily with the same people in every class. You do tend to move through the program with a collection of humans on a similar track. And we hope that you find relationships and connections within those groups as you move through, and support. Pairing advisors with students. So that, I don't know, I know in Asheville we do it very, it's a very thoughtful, I'm being sarcastic. We are very efficient about how we place our students with our advisors. Right now, Dr. Finfausen and I are the only two academic advisors on the Asheville campus, as we're bringing in a few new faculty to our family here in Asheville, but we split the advisees most of the time alphabetically. And that happens within the first couple of weeks of the semester, at which point we require you to set up an advising meeting with your advisor, where we create an advising grid with you that outlines sort of the entirety of the program, with the number of classes that you want to take each semester, with if you prefer online options when they're available versus face-to-face. We can work all of that out in a tentative plan that then can be changed as we go, but gives you a sense of what it's going to look like timeline wise.
The other thing I'd say about that with advising, the thing again that'll be different than undergrad is this. I mean, accreditation's great and it's bad. Our program looks very much like Appalachian's program, Carolina's program. I mean, it's very similar classes we require. So, but I think having that relationship with your advisor is good because they'll be the person maybe writing you recommendations, talking to you about jobs, mentoring. It's just advising at the graduate level so different than at the undergrad level. So, and we have the ethos of a small private liberal arts college. So we want to be connected with you. That's a goal of ours.
And it seems to still be happening, even though we've grown. It still feels very much like a small program to me, that I know my students know me. I feel very connected to my students. And even I will also say, as far as academic advising goes, you know, I have my set advisees whose scheduling I work through with them and who I advise in that way. It doesn't mean they can't reach out to Dr. Gre or to Dr. Finfausen on the Asheville campus if they're here for additional professional support or career advice or whatever, and vice versa. If you're assigned to a different faculty and want to connect with me, that's always encouraged and welcome. We just do the advising designations pretty randomly, and it tends to work out pretty well, but the faculty are all fairly available for students. It's a priority, as Dr. Gre said. Candidacy, yes. Thank you, Nichole. So Dr. Gre said our curriculum looks super similar to most other KCREP accredited counseling programs, I would even say in the country, not just in North Carolina. One thing that is different that I had never heard of until I started teaching at Lenoir-Rhyne is our candidacy process. This is unique to our program. And at first I thought, I don't know about that, but I have come to really love it. I think it's a really effective and helpful process for us and for our students. And what it is that when students are admitted, when you get your acceptance letter after you apply to LR's counseling program, you will get an admittance and acceptance to the graduate school. And all of our students are admitted it's not an official provisional admittance. You are fully admitted to the grad school. But then to become a fully admitted counseling student, you have to successfully pass through our candidacy process. And the candidacy process involves passing 3 of what we call our candidacy classes: counseling theories, counseling ethics, and counseling our basic techniques class, which most students take within their first 2 to 3 semesters alongside other classes. If you want 2 or 3 in a semester, there are others you can take alongside those. And then after you've been successful in those 3 classes, you submit an application that's very standard and that you get guidance around in the techniques class to then be admitted to candidacy. We find it really helpful as those 3 candidacy classes, as well as the intro track-based classes, tend to be super helpful for students to really discern if this is what they thought it was going to be and if it's the right fit for them. It also gives us as faculty the opportunity to discern the same. Do we think that this program and this career is a great fit for you? And that you're the best fit for our program. I do like to say it sounds really scary, the candidacy process. It's not intended to intimidate. The vast majority of our students pass candidacy with no problems. a handful, I can't, again, numbers to these things. Some students at the candidacy point will be asked to meet with faculty to get sometimes critical feedback about some things that we've noticed that we want them to continue working on. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not admitted to candidacy. All students get feedback at the candidacy point, both areas of strength and areas for growth that's individualized to you, so that you get a sense of how you're doing and how what your faculty see as things that you might want to keep working on and things that you're doing really well. Did I cover it, Nichole? We also sometimes talk about, I've heard horror stories about law school, especially where they say, like, look to your left, look to your right. Only one of those people will be here by the time you graduate. It is not that. It is not that process at all. We want all of our students to pass candidacy, but we also want all of our students to want to be here and to know that it's the right fit before they invest years and thousands of dollars into this educational process. We want you to know what you're signing up for, in the spirit of informed consent, which is an important part of counseling too. Let's see, elective, horticultural therapy, no. These are good questions. Most of our students work full-time. I'd say nearly all of our students work. But most work full-time. Is it possible to do internship? We do sometimes approve what we call a double internship, where you can do 40 hours a week at your site, and that could happen at a residential treatment facility. But there's a number of factors that go into that being approved, and it's generally not approved until you're in practicum. So like the semester before is when you would put in the request for a double internship and have that approved or not by the faculty based on your developmental level and whether we think that's a good fit for you developmentally, and whether or not the site can actually accommodate the number of hours that you would need to be there. But it's possible. Horticulture therapy, no, we don't, but how cool would that be? We do also take transfer credits for electives. So if there's something that you're super passionate about that we don't offer and someone else does, that can work. We also have been known to approve electives from programs that aren't counseling. So like in Asheville, we've got it's now an MFA program in creative writing. And there's some narrative writing courses that our students have taken as an elective. I know like some of the business classes, you could totally make a case for those to be counted as counseling electives. Stephen, on the Asheville campus, that's true, that it would probably be Mondays and Tuesdays. I can't speak for Hickory or Columbia around the schedule.
I can kind of just speak real quick to the questions about just as far as, let me look back, students being accepted into the program, how many students that we have. We're not a cohort-based program, so we don't have like a hard cap at, we're only accepting 30 students each semester into our program. I'll say it kind of depends semester to semester as far as how many students apply. We offer rolling admission again for fall, spring, and summer terms. Our largest enrollment cycle is always going to be the fall because that's when most students start school. But we accept applications for the spring, which a lot of programs don't do. But we also offer them for students to start in the summer as well. So like I said, we don't necessarily have a cap. We look for students to, of course, meet our baseline admission requirements. And yeah, so hopefully that kind of answers that question a little bit. But as far as how many students apply, our counseling program has grown exponentially, I think, in the past several years. And I don't know if that's an increase in need for mental health services. I definitely say, and who knows with this pandemic, how that's going to play out in several years from now. But I definitely think there's a growing need and growing interest in the mental health field. So
Thanks, Nichole.
hopefully that helps answer that.
Yeah, those of you thinking of applying for spring or summer, those are usually, I mean, a perk is those tend to be smaller incoming groups. And so your starting classes might be a little bit smaller, which is kind of nice. But then you kind of, as you move through, because we're not cohort based, you really get to know folks who start a semester or two before you and a semester or two after you, which is kind of cool. And again, an unexpected perk of a non-cohort based model, which I'm the product of only cohort based models, and I've really enjoyed our non-cohort based culture here. You're not stuck with the same people, which can be great if you really connect with them, but it can also backfire if it doesn't feel like a great fit. So. Other questions? Was going to say, Nichole saying about the program's growth and the need for mental health, that it's an exciting time to be a counselor, I would say, as not only are folks really developing increased awareness of the importance of mental health, but also the stigma around mental health support is decreasing. I would say it seems like it. I'm excited about that. I keep waiting for Asheville to hit a saturation point of mental health professionals, and it hasn't happened yet. They're on all of my professional Facebook groups and things, referrals, people are full and always looking to refer clients and have other folks who aren't working with massive wait lists. So I think the outlook for a career is pretty solid for our mental health professionals, especially licensed clinical mental health counselors. And that's just Asheville, which is, again, pretty, you throw a stone and you can find a mental health professional.
In school counselors, there's plenty of, there are counselors needed in the schools right now.
Yeah. Rebecca, that's a great question as far as supporting folks finding jobs. We don't have any, we have a career center in Hickory that's really helpful and available to students across all 3 campuses. We do a lot of mentoring as advisors and throughout the process. And what I find is students tend to find jobs through their practicum and internship sites that either they're hired by their prac or internship site, which is awesome, or the connections that they build through those experiences get them connected with a different agency or a different practitioner who opens a door for them. That so far our students don't seem to have trouble finding jobs after graduation. They may not land their dream job right away. I mean, you're not going to graduate and immediately have a thriving private practice. That takes time, but folks find work, specifically work that helps them accrue those hours for licensure and be paid to do it, which is the goal. Yay.
That school
Neal.
counseling question.
Yeah.
Let me read that. Is the school counseling program accepted in other states? The idiosyncrasy of I guess there is, if you are a Columbia student, you can take the school counseling classes. When we developed the program in Columbia, we only I don't even know what the language is. It's not even a credit. I guess it's accredited at the state level. We only offer the mental health program in South Carolina. We didn't get approval, or we didn't seek approval to do the school counseling program there. But somebody could take those classes. You would be licensed in North Carolina and then need to transfer the license to South Carolina. So if this is somebody in South Carolina, Nichole, you can get my information from Nichole. I'd love to talk to you. But this happens too. I've got a former Hickory graduate that was a school counselor in North Carolina. He moved to Charleston, South Carolina, and transferred his license. So it's doable. It's able for school counselors to move their license from state to state. So I don't know if that answered that or not. But. And you guys, I've got to go. I've got a student meeting. I really appreciate everybody coming. If you need us, we'd love to talk to you more. This is an important decision in your life. And we're just excited you're thinking about a field that's going to help others, whether if it's us or other programs. But we do have a good product. So thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Gre. We appreciate you being here. All righty. So we are at 1 o'clock. And so does anybody have any other questions before we let Dr. Jordan head out about, the counseling program specifically? I think these were really great questions that y'all asked. So a lot of great information. And again, we're recording this session, so you can take a look back at it if there's something you need a refresher on. And also, I think, was it Dr. Gre or Dr. Jordan? You had included your emails. So I have that information to share with y'all too, if you want to be back in touch with either Dr. Gre or Dr. Jordan.
We're happy to set up one-on-one appointments if you have specific questions or things that weren't answered today. Also, I'll say for Asheville, and Dr. Gre would probably say the same for Hickory. I just don't want to speak for him. But if you ever want to sit in on a class, either virtually or face-to-face, that's something we can talk about setting up once Jan's back in the office after her recovery period, then she can help set that up. In the meantime, if that's something you're interested in on the Asheville campus, feel free to reach out to me directly. We can try to get that set up.
All righty. Well, thank you, Dr. Jordan, for being with us. You're always such a great help and so informative with these sessions. So we appreciate it. And yeah, let Dr. Jordan know if y'all need anything else, but I'll let you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah. So for the remainder of the session, I'm going to be covering admission requirements and financial aid information. For the sake of time, I'll try to roll through this information pretty quickly. For those of you that I've already talked to or that Jan has talked to, it will not hurt our feelings if you have to cut out, go back to work, whatever you need to do in your day. I will not be offended by it. I understand. But feel free to stay on if you have questions about admission requirements, financial aid, and any of the steps for applying. So I do have a visual, so a PowerPoint to share with you. I'm a visual person. I like to see it. So I will share my screen. If you have any questions, I'm thinking I can still see the chat, but again, I'm not offended if you unmute and say, hey, Nichole, I have a question, just because I'm kind of looking at two different screens while doing this. So feel free to interrupt me if you need to. Okay. So, okay. Jan, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see this PowerPoint? Yeah, good. Awesome. All righty. So I'm not going to go over this super in depth, but this is just a little bit of information about Lenoir-Rhyne University, our mission here as an institution, and our vision and goals for our students. So like I said, I'm not going to read this word for word, but I do like to include it. Also, I won't spend a lot of time on this. When we do these sessions in person, or pre-COVID, we would have on-campus open houses, but I really like to have students introduce themselves, talk about why you have chosen to pursue grad school, what your interests are, because it's different for everybody. But with our counseling students, of course, one of the main reasons is because you have to, right? In order to be a school counselor or a clinical mental health counselor, you've got to go to grad school, and you've got to get your license. So that's probably a driving factor for you, but also, of course, there are other reasons that to add to it. So increased earning potential, and greater employment opportunities, deepening your knowledge, learning to think critically, accepting a new challenge. Graduate school is a new challenge. It's a life change. It's an adjustment. But we're here to support you along the way and believe that you can do it as well. So these are just some examples for why people pursue grad school. So I know that each and every one of you has your reasons too. So a brief overview of LR. Again, we have, I guess you could say technically 4 locations, including online, but our main campus is in Hickory, North Carolina. We also offer classes in Asheville, North Carolina, and Columbia. So clinical counseling, again, is offered on all 3. And then school counseling is offered in Hickory and Asheville. As Dr. Jordan mentioned, a lot of these statistics, but average class size is about 20 students. Sometimes you might have a little bit more students, especially in the fall in those beginning classes. But as you go through the program, your class size tends to get a little bit smaller. Typically, most grad students take 6 to 9 credit hours a semester. 9 credit hours or 3 courses is a full-time course load. But if you're, working full-time and, have kids, have families, all of these other life obligations that grad students have to handle and manage, more of a part-time course load is going to be 6 credit hours, or 2 classes a semester. As Dr. Jordan said, you can take 1 class a semester if you need to. Just know doing it that way, you'll be in the program a little bit longer. So yeah. Okay, so these are just all of the grad programs that we offer here at Lenoir-Rhyne. Again, I won't spend too much time on that, but I do like to outline it for everybody. These are just some highlights of our Hickory campus. So again, we are located about 45 minutes from Boone, 45 minutes from Charlotte, and then about an hour and some change from Asheville. So this house right here is where our graduate offices are located. It is now bright red, as it was recently renovated. So if you need to come by campus and see us, that's where we are. Of course, the beautiful Asheville campus has a lot to offer, incredible views, and it's Asheville. There's tons of things to do there. But our Asheville Center is located in the Chamber of Commerce building on the 2nd and 3rd floors. And again, has so much to offer as far as the location. And is this, smaller, it's not our main campus, but, it has your traditional classrooms and everything included that you would need. And then also our Columbia campus. So we are partnered with the Lutheran Theological Southern Seminary down there in Columbia. So we also have an occupational therapy program. So we have a pretty new health sciences center, but these are just some highlights of our Columbia campus. Definitely hot climate in Columbia, but also a lot to offer if you're looking, if you live close to that area, want a little bit more of a city feel, we offer counseling there. So as far as the schedule, Dr. Jordan highlighted a lot of this. Most of our students work full-time, part-time, do the program. And I would say that's a really big benefit of our program, is that it's designed for the working professional. We understand that grad students have lives outside of school, and you have a lot going on. So we try to structure our program to accommodate that as much as we can. Again, your classes are typically going to be in the evenings, so after 5:00 p.m. To help accommodate for students who are working during the day. You will have a handful of online classes that you'll take in the counseling program. And then especially this fall, we've had a lot of our classes that are offering streaming to where you don't necessarily have to come to campus. So I can't say that you will not have on-campus classes in future semesters. We have not made any decisions about really how our classes are going to be offered next spring. It's kind of with COVID been a week by week process. But just know that there are a lot of flexible options, but our program is not a fully online program. But there are a good handful of online asynchronous classes that you'll take. So the application process. So basically, it is an online application for those of you who have not started your application yet. The first step is creating your account. And then from there, you'll choose both the track that you're applying through, so clinical or school, and you'll select your location, so Hickory, Asheville, or Columbia. We can waive your application fee, yay. So normally it's $35 to apply, but if you use the code LRU Grad 21, that application fee will be waived for you. And we can also send that to you. Just feel free to email Jan or myself if you need the code again. We're more than happy to waive that and fee and save you a little money there. So when you're applying, one thing to keep in mind is we have two different tracks. So we have a traditional admission track and then a career admission track. The difference is traditional admission track, that's more for students that have either recently finished their bachelor's degree and are kind of looking to go directly right into their master's program and may not have a lot of professional work experience that they have gained quite yet. So if that is you, we would ask that you apply through our traditional admission track. Our career admission track is more for applicants that have gained, maybe have been out of school for a while and have established themselves in a career field. It does not have to be related to counseling. It's preferable, but again, we have students that come from all different areas of concentration that pursue our counseling program. So, but if you have gained at least, we look for about 6 years of professional work experience or more, that admission track would be more suitable for you. So you can select that option. We will need all of your official transcripts from your previous institutions. So that means each individual institution too, each individual transcript. So if you just went to one four-year institution, we'll need that transcript. But if you attended any community colleges here and there, maybe you got your associate somewhere else and then transferred to the school that you graduated from, we need each individual transcript sent to us. And so you can send that electronically. That's the quickest way. Or we also accept transcripts by mail, and the address is provided there for you. Okay, application deadlines. So we call these priority deadlines because we're pretty flexible here at LR in the sense that we try to work with our applicants as much as possible. These are the deadlines that we highly advise for you to have your application items and application complete by. But if for some reason, maybe you're still waiting on that transcript to get to us, or you're waiting on your recommendation letter to come back, we will still work with you after these dates if needed. But these dates make it a much more seamless enrollment process if you can get everything turned in by then. So for this coming spring, the deadline will be December 1st. If you're looking at summer, it'll be May 1st, and then next fall will be August 1st. So just keep those deadlines in mind. And if you have any questions about that, just let Jan or myself know. Admission requirements. So these are our admission requirements for the counseling program. So of course, the application form is your first step. That's just a basic generalized application form. So again, campus location, program, it'll ask you certain questions that you'll need to complete, but work experience, schools you've attended. We ask that you please list all of the schools that you've attended on your application form. And that's, again, the first step. So once you're finished with that, I know it seems scary to press that submit button, but go ahead and submit it. And then you'll see where you can upload these other items for admission that we require. So our baseline GPA that we look for is a cumulative 2.7. We will need all of your official transcripts. So once we get those, you will have a checklist that you will see, and those will be checked off once we have received your transcript. We asked for one letter of recommendation. So for our traditional admission track students, we asked for an academic recommendation letter. So that could come from a faculty member, professor, that from your previous institution that can attest to your abilities to succeed at the graduate level. And if you're a career admission track student, we ask for a professional reference. So that could come from a current or former supervisor, employer, and so on. We do ask for a resume. So just your basic resume, an essay. So for the essay, we look for about 2 pages, double spaced. And this is the part of the application that we really get to learn about you as a person, as a student, as a professional. And so we encourage you to make your essay your own. Only disclose as much as you want to in your essay, but tell us about yourself. Tell us about your experiences and your journey to your decision to apply to grad school. Why do you want to be a mental health counselor or school counselor? So you can talk about any life, career, education experiences that may have led you to the decision to apply, why you feel like you'd be a good fit for our program here at Lenoir-Rhyne, and then of course, any career goals or aspirations that you have for yourself once you've completed your degree. So those are some guidelines, but again, we encourage you to make the essay your own. Also, if you have any concerns about meeting maybe one of our admission requirements, so sometimes we get the question, oh, my GPA might not meet your minimum. What should I do to strengthen my application? The essay is a really good place to kind of explain your circumstances. So, we have students that were in college years ago and they didn't take their undergrad as seriously as they should have. And now they're applying to grad school and their GPA isn't what they hope for. So that's a good part to kind of talk about in your essay and how you've learned from those experiences and grown from those experiences and feel more prepared at this time to pursue graduate studies. So the essay is a good place for that if you have concerns. And then the biggie, we do not require the standardized test anymore. Yay. So you are not required to take the GRE or the MAT. We have decided to waive that for future semesters. So if you're applying to different schools and you want to submit scores to help strengthen your application, we'll certainly accept them. But do not feel like it is a requirement to do that in order to get in. We will accept them if you choose to send them to us, because I know that test is expensive and you spend a lot of time studying for it. But just know it is not required. And then lastly, again, if there's a part of the application that we have concerns about, or maybe is not meeting our standard requirement, we may ask for you to have an interview upon request with our counseling faculty. So just be mindful of that too. If you choose to take the test, I did leave this on here. These are, we accept the MAT and the GRE for our counseling program. If you wanted to submit scores, those are our baseline requirements and then the school codes that you can use to have your scores sent to us. Okay. Lastly, everybody's favorite part of the conversation is cost and financial aid. I know y'all love this. So our cost for the counseling program is applied by the credit hour each semester. So for the 2021-2022 academic year, the cost per credit hour is currently $670 per credit for a counseling program. So again, our program is 61 credit hours. So doing the math, our program is a little over, I'd say like 40,000 total for the entire program. And so too, with that, our tuition cost tends to change a little bit each year, just being transparent with you. So last year the cost was $650 per credit hour. This year's it's $670. And we get our new tuition rates. They start over in the summer. So if you're looking at summer or fall, this might look a little bit different. But for the current tuition rate is $670 per credit hour. So as far as paying for school, students can pay their tuition costs out of pocket. You do not have to take out financial aid if you do not need it. Our business office is willing to set up payment plans with students if needed. But a lot of times our students are in need of financial aid. And so there are federal financial aid options for graduate students. Most commonly, graduate students are eligible for the direct unsubsidized loan, and that is through the FAFSA. So you would file your FAFSA and then apply for the direct unsubsidized loan, in which you would get $20,500 per academic year with that loan. That can be split between all 3 semesters. If you choose to take summer classes, you would just arrange that with our financial aid office. And so that loan does go a very long way as far as paying and covering your tuition cost. If you needed additional aid, in addition to that unsub loan, you can apply for the Graduate Plus loan. And so that loan kind of bridges the gap between your cost of attendance and then other financial aid that you're receiving. I do get the question, are there any institutional grants or scholarships that I can apply for? Unfortunately, we do not have any institutional grants or scholarships for our graduate students. But anytime we get word of scholarship opportunities, especially for counseling students, we try to send that information out. Our faculty are pretty good about sending that to students as well. Also, there are North Carolina loans as well. So there's the North Carolina Student Assist Loan through CFNC. That loan has no prepayment, origination, or application fees associated with it. So definitely something to look into. And then there's also the Forgivable Education Loan for Service. So for students that are working and attending a North Carolina school and planning to go in an employment shortage field. So clinical counseling students can qualify for this. School counseling, unfortunately, does not. But for every year of work that you're, putting into that profession, a year of your loans can be forgiven with that. So it's a loan forgiveness program, essentially. So definitely something for clinical students that's worth looking into. And we have Jan and I have some financial aid information that we can send to y'all if needed as well. I'll keep moving forward. Other suggestions for paying for grad school. We do offer what we call graduate assistantship positions. And I will say that these are very limited. And we do not know each year how many will become available. Most become available for the fall semester. So usually they'll be posted on our employment website, our webpage in early to late June. These positions are kind of a similar concept to work study, to where students can work for a department on campus about 20 hours a week. and receive a certain amount of tuition remission. So most will cover about 15 credit hours of tuition remission each year. And most are 1 to 2 year positions. So we have graduate assistants that work in our office for admissions, undergrad admissions, career services, library services, and these are mainly on our Hickory campus. As far as Asheville, we have 1 grad assistant up there. And then Columbia, we don't have any, I don't believe right now. So like I said, it just kind of depends on the year and what students are graduating as far as how many we'll have available. But they are great opportunities to help pay for school and make connections on campus as well. Also, we have tuition discount programs, specifically for our LR partnerships. So we are partnered with local agencies, businesses, school systems in the Hickory, Asheville, and Columbia areas. So we have a list of those that we can send to you. Just email Jan or myself if you need more information. But employees of those, businesses, school system, agencies, if they are partnered with us, you would get a tuition discount, 10, 15, or 20%. So if you think you might be working for an LR partner, please let us know. We check your resume and those kinds of things to make sure that your discount is applied. But it never hurts to send us a reminder to make sure that you get that discount. Also, we have an Alumni Advantage discount, which is a tuition discount for our alumni. So students that have graduated from LR can receive a 10, 15, or 20% discount depending on their credit hours. So yeah. There's a couple other suggestions, but I won't spend too much time going over that information. And then here's some just additional tips for applying for federal aid. So of course, filing your FAFSA. We have the LR school code that you can use. This is the current 5.28% is the current interest rate. But as many of you may have heard, there's a suspension of loan payments now through January 31st due to COVID-19. And then these were just some of the counseling program highlights. So I've covered most of this information. And then questions. So this is all of our contact information. So myself, Jan, who is again our enrollment counselor in Asheville, Dr. Neal Gre for our Hickory campus, Myra Jordan for Asheville, and then Dr. Janelle Robinson is our program coordinator for our Columbia campus in counseling. So she was not with us today, but if you are interested in the Columbia program and would like to speak with her, that is her contact information, and you are encouraged to reach out. So I can also share this PowerPoint with you all. And of course, this is recorded, so we'll send that recording, but I think it's always good to have these items as a reference in case y'all need them. But I went through that really quickly and I didn't see if anybody had any chat messages. I don't think I missed anything. But I will open it up for questions. I know it's about 1:30, so and I'll stick around if y'all have anything you need to ask. But other than that, I will, let y'all go. Enjoy the rest of your day. But again, I just really appreciate you taking the time out of your afternoon to be with us. We're excited that you're interested in Lenoir-Rhyne. Me being a student in our counseling program myself, I can't speak highly enough about it. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Our faculty are really passionate about working with our students. And are passionate about the counseling field. So, just let us know if there's anything we can do to help you. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Nichole. Everything's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
looks like Stephen, you still here?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
I
Thank you for
appreciate it.
coming.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'll be in contact.
Awesome. Well,
right,
thank you
take
for
care.
joining us. Have a good
No
day.
problem. You too. Bye-bye.